I'm having technical difficulties today, but this is my message to Centcom, and hopefully I get it out to you today without problems with James Radcliffe. I'm still fiddling around with his camera, but here's what I got to say to you. What you think is going on with regards to the federal government um, needs to be addressed and needs to be checked out. Here's what I suggest: that you follow up with the Federal Communications Commission and determine what is going on with the fact that Villanova, Cuba, England, Egypt, and Korea, for just to name a few countries, have access to public radio that they're using outside of the bandwidth. And with these bandwidth frequencies, they're connecting them with SATCOM within the federal government in the United States and the governments outside of the United States. And this exchange of information has caused, with regards to my population, and what I've observed is the fact that I have been impacted over 200 iterations or 200 times with regards to stolen ideals that I never communicated to anyone. My father's friend, Paul Napier, just told me that he did the same thing in 1953 to my son, my father, who was a child that they were trying to kill when he was 2. And I don't know if it was for the marble press and the cookie cutter or cookie press, which I heard about 3 years ago, that those were 2 inventions that they were trying to lie about where they came from. And I think either he, at the age of 2 or something like that, he said to me when he was a boy, he loved marbles, is what he told me. Now, he probably told me that because he was in a period of duress. And then he bought me some marbles. But what I'm saying about that is he's been going through patterns of destruction with regards to the theft of intellectual property rights. And that looks like the fact that you're having an ideal about something and someone lifts that ideal out of your mind to the extent where it's being communicated. And in my situation, over 250 ideals I have been lifted from from my psyche or my mind and given to over, hundreds of people. And these hundreds of people have made money, and these people work in the federal government or in municipal and local governments and all the states where I lived and served in the military. This happened to me as a child. This happened to my father as a child. It happened to my mom as a child to an extent where there are certain things that she did. And even Richard Ellis says that he's done things to my grandmother just to make things extra racist when she became a worthy matron. But even before that, she was good at math. And all the things that she was able to do and accomplish, he stole from her. I don't know what math looked like then, and we never had that conversation. But my father talks about the fact that he was good in math too. And all the things my dad was able to do was based upon ingenuity and the fact that he was a good student at school. And so the crux of this issue is that you have, in my observation, field of observation, is the fact that over 4 to 5 descendants of my grandfather or my great-grandparents have been marginalized due to the fact that there has been some invasions of privacy via radios, that when I talked to Richard Ellis about something horrific, and when I caught it in 1978, after I heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor, I thought that the way that the intel actually was complicated, that there was an inside job, or this was an inside job. And every time I talked to Richard Ellis, he's always been the person who has known about insider communications, or the lifting of certain thoughts, or the lifting of certain pre-communicated information that turns into some form of treason to escalate to the point where there's war. And so, sir or ma'am, I am working very hard here on this situation only because I have been directly impacted. My internal organs have been taken from me. I've been left with an implant of those organs. I don't know how I have them. I also have been attacked by sexual encounters where I've been given aluminum dioxide to cause my my intestines and my stomach to be depleted and lifted. Maybe that's what happened to me. I do believe that, maybe just whatever. I mean, the point of the matter is there's just some cross-cycling to the point where I'm still here. I do cherish every day, but I also have question with the fact that Richard Ellis and James Radcliffe use the occult to kind of cross-reference certain things that look like something when they're not. So Richard Ellis, when I was in the hospital, attacked me and called it something where it was something called the inanimate heart series, where there was something hurting me internally, which I did not know that was taking my heart from me. And then 2 to 3 years later, I experienced the fact, not even 2 years later, 18 months later, I experienced the fact that I'm losing my internal organs to include my my brain. And so with that being said, that's when I met James Radcliffe, who at first said, well, he didn't even tell me who he was, but basically, long story short, he's a Gennady Cuneo. He works with and against me because of the theft of an invention that I wanted to write out, which I've never explained directly to the Army, my emphasis. So Army, here's the emphasis of what I was doing. I wanted to determine if there was already the establishment of a server that the government was using, or the Army was using, to send information abroad after I was stationed in Doha. That server had an error, and I lost 20 documents. I could not talk to anyone about that because it could have been further exploited by the S2, and I probably should have. I did not know what to say. But I probably did say something about it, because the S4 was knowledgeable on the ground as to what was going on, which showed to me a signaling of an issue between two staff officers or two staff officer departments that were not on board. And so, yes, I actually did, because I needed to ensure that that never happened again. And then I also reached out to the master authorization load list people, or the AQL and ASL in Doha, to ensure that all of the automated support for any of the repairables, recoverables would have been on board before we moved out going north. And so in order to do that, I had to have a conversation with S2 to ensure that that continuity was established. But when I saw that there were satellite phones, I determined that there was a server. So how much of the information I was able to relay, I'm not really sure. But the point of the matter and the emphasis is that I wrote down a document after 11 years of studying of what I could determine about whatever servers there were, and I was not in, or there was, or is. I wasn't in the Army, and I finally said, I've had enough. I'm going to write what I have and see if I can develop it there, and either develop it as non-developmental through the A76 program, then to compete it once it was perfected, to ensure that the national security element was, further developed. And so, all right, so basically I knew the servers were available. I knew that we were having problems with storage of data, and that according to certain people that would be an issue. It would be before that issue where we would have another catastrophic loss of the data management. And this data management would be more than the problem area would suggest, of over terabytes or the ability to store terabytes in a place where it would be accessible any place off on the ground. And then a lot of this would be, I was writing something based, or not mimicking or trying to mimic, but I was trying to make something original. And that document was stolen from me. The way I can actually, the last time I had physical custody of the document was November 28th, 2011. Prior to that, I talked to Jane Adams Martin, who was a contacting specialist, and I told her, based upon her mannerisms and how she really was towards me, that I kind of was letting her know I needed her to help me, and that she should forgive those people who have harmed her and stop taking it out on me, is what I told her. But that happened December either 11th or 15th. But I had that conversation with her because I would need her to kind of help me figure out what I could do, and if we could do it together as a project with other people who want to work in that job field, which would be creating that space, which later was patent, or I guess patent by whoever Pamela Tall. She's confesses, that's what she says, confessing to have stolen the cloud from me, but she also throws Dee Marie Aponte's name out there as a person who actually took it out of my credenza. And so I, did not think that that would be stolen. What I wanted to find out was if I went to market and someone actually stole that ideal from me on the market, or however it's insider traded or not, that I would find out who was betraying me, or who was selling me out, or who was stealing my information. I wasn't thinking it was from the job where I worked. I wasn't, even though a book was taken, I thought it was like David Katz being like weird and, trying to get my attention on some issues that really had nothing to do with the job. So there's issues with kleptomaniac or kleptomaniacism at the DLA, where they take things, they actually go to the key, go get the key to open up the credenza to get your stuff out of it, which there's nobody to report those types of things to, or I didn't know how to report it. But then I trusted that they were either razzing me and they would give it back, or they're trying to get my attention in some way and mistreat me as a low person on the totem pole. It's really how I thought it was. So I thought it was more of a bringing me into the culture and I'll get my stuff back. They stole my hematite bracelet, which is made of like a dark stone. This is the second hematite item that ever had stolen. The first one was stolen in Oklahoma. Lastly, ultimately what I'm saying to you, I would want to determine who was stealing over 200 plus things that they've stolen from me that I know about, and then determine how to go about that in a litigation arena to stop this from happening. And this was in 2011. So I was on the move to figure out why I wasn't successful and why the things I was thinking of were being competed out when it happens in the Army's, I'll say in the Army's process, that either there's a sole source or there's multiple sources developed. And then from there, we had other issues but other buying objectives that accomplish the same thing on the commercial side, but then it's always to the honor of the person who's the original owner. And so none of those things were happening to me. And this massive oligarchy by, if I say oligarchy, it's wrong, but this massive oligarchy by the Richard Ellis's network, Pamela Toll, Jane Adams Martin, they actually took my wings from underneath me all my life, and has caused many problems. And Richard Ellis has been raping me, for however he puts it, somehow raping me. And now it's becoming problematic to the point where he alleges that there has been over 5,000 rapes of my daughter, which I can't put my hands on. And her father, James Cuneo, who's non-custodial, who lives in Florida, also says that he was molested in some way, maybe not so much, but he uses or alludes to the fact that he's Klan and has abused my daughter's psyche using many different types of things to conclude. I'm just going to say the Kabbalah, nuclear waste, electronic or electromagnetic frequency, and other public utilities to cause her to experience problems with just growing, just being a child. And so Richard Ellis says he's done many things to me. And I called him out on the False Claims Act, on integrity under 5 U.S.C. Claims Act, false claims under 31 U.S.C. I can't penetrate this wall. And it is causing me problems internationally where I never would have had these problems. And lastly, these international problems have been reported to Centcom as issues with, like I was saying, setting up those networks overseas to make sure those items, reparables, recoverables, etc., were automatically pushed forward as needed. And so James Cuneo says he's gotten involved in that intel as well, and only based upon the fact that he says that he's attached something to my body that allows him to hear. And so this cannot be tolerated. I mean, between the services, I've got a Navy admiral who says he's stolen from me as a child. I got a Marine Corps person who actually stalked me as a teenager, who actually had sex with a man who would marry me 40 years later, 30 years later. The same man is saying that he also is Richard Ellis's molestee, from Drexel Hill, who traveled to North Carolina to rape me with James Cuneo. And so this person he's not a military man, but he's the family of a Coast Guardie who served, I don't know how many years Robert Harrison Rostick served, but William Rostick was only a lifeguard part-time and a teacher at Summers Point. And so there's just a lot of things that are not making sense. But I do know what's the problem is. I do know how many times I've been robbed. I do know how many times there's things that I've never communicated to anyone in this lifetime. And I know I'd have to tell myself why or how this happened. And the only reason why I did it is because I was forced to. Because I would have gone on in life knowing that it happened. But I was forced to because Pamela Tall, Richard Ellis, Jane Adams Martin would not let me remedy or ask for a remedy at the local agency level. And they would not allow me to save my life. And they kept threatening me with the fact that my aunt had been killed. And then they all alleged that they have killed other people in my family, going back to my mom's best friend, who was my dad's brother. So anyway, that's it for now. I hope I made it brief. I really want the chance to talk to someone to get rid of this problem, because why am I going through this and then there are other people suffering? So I'm hearing 5,000 children since 2017 have killed themselves. 2016 have killed themselves because of what DLA has been doing. I can't go through this alone, and I'm trying here. I need somebody else to stand up to, because I can't do this by myself, and I never could. I asked for integrity all my life, and I asked people to have structure all their lives to do what's right, and I'm sick of doing this by myself.